Hello, and welcome to the board game The Witcher Old World by Go On Board Games in collaboration with CD Projekt Red. I'm going to be giving you guys an overview of the Tabletop Simulator mod that I put together for this game. And it won't be a completely in-depth instructional video, but I'll give you an overview of the basic idea of how to play and how to use this mod in the first place. Now, when you load up the game for the first time, you will be greeted with this setup menu where you are able to enable and disable any expansion content you wish. This game has a lot of expansions and a lot of modules within expansions, and you can kind of tailor it to your liking. If you want to play with just the base game content, you can click on the Witcher button right up here at the top, and that will it's a quick way to just disable everything. And then you can choose how many players you have in the game and hit start game, and the board will kind of set itself up for how you wish. And if I were to just reload this again, I can get back to the setup menu in a fresh board state. By default, I have options enabled, which what I think most people would agree is a nice standard game with a lot of good expansion content added to the game. But once again, you can tweak if you want to add the Lost Mount expansion in. If you want to add Skellig in, you're welcome to do that. And then you just hit start game, and the game board will set itself up as based on your choices. But I'll start off with giving you a brief overview of each of the modules and expansions and what they add to the game. First up here we have the Mages expansion, and this allows you the opportunity to play as a mage instead of a witcher. They have their own market of action cards that they can gain, and they have a slightly different play style than the witchers. So just by turning this on, you have access to those characters. The Adventure Pack expansion just simply adds more city exploration cards and wild exploration cards and more events to each of the decks. So these decks are in the base game, and this expansion just includes more cards in those decks. So there's really no added complexity to this, so you can enable this no problem. Next, we'll talk about the Monster Trail expansion. Now, this is the one expansion that I think most people agree that if you were to buy one expansion for your base game, this would be the one to go for. Includes quite a few modules, and some of them are pretty good at expanding the core gameplay. The most notable one is this Monster Weakness and Special Attacks module. Now, typically, when you are facing off against monsters in the game, they are represented by these cards here. And these cards will tell you their hit points, and they kind of have like a special ability. And beyond that's one kind of special ability, there's really not much to differentiate fighting between the different monsters in the base game. So if you include the Monster Weakness and Special Attacks module, then monsters are now represented by these larger cards. And these larger cards have a couple of things added to them. They have their same life pool and their same basic passive ability, but they also have 4 unique attacks that can come out when you're fighting against them. So it gives them a lot of different variety between each of the monsters. They also have a passive ability which can trigger when you're damaging them. And moreover, it introduces weakness tokens that you can gather over the course of the game. And when you gather weakness tokens, you can take advantage of an ability against the monster when you go to fight it. So again, just by adding these cards, it adds a little bit of complexity, but it's very much worth it because it gives a lot of personality and differences between fighting each different monster. Next up, we have unique action cards. Every player in the game starts with a basic deck of 10 starting cards, and these starting decks do have slight differences between each character, but they're fairly similar to each other, and this unique action card just gives you one extra card to your starting deck to give the Witchers a more asymmetric feel amongst each other. So again, it's kind of no complexity added, you just get one extra starting card to your starting deck. And next up, we have the advanced action cards. The base game starts with a deck of 90 action cards that you are able to gain and add to your deck over the course of the game. And by enabling this, you just get 40 new advanced action cards added to this deck that you are able to gain. These cards have some cool special abilities to them and are kind of fun to play with. Here we have the option to add a deck of bomb cards to the game. Typically throughout the game, you have a chance to gain potion cards. And by adding this bombs module, you have an opportunity to gain bombs instead of potions. Basically, anytime you would gain a potion, you now have the option to either discard a potion or a gold piece to gain a bomb instead. So this just provides you another option to gain some interesting cards that you can use during combat. Mutagen cards are an interesting module. So typically whenever you level up your Witcher, you get to draw cards from your deck to give you some more flexibility. This, however, adds a new deck of cards that gives you a permanent passive ability, which again kind of leans into some more asymmetric play between Witchers as you level up, which is pretty cool. Now let's talk about the Skellig expansion. By enabling the Skellig expansion, you enable travel to the islands of Skellig off the continent here. Typically in the base game, you're limited to traveling just around the continent here. But if you enable Skellig and start game, it's going to add quite a few things to the game board. It adds these harbor tokens to denote that these cities are areas that you can dock ships into, and 3 ships are seeded out into these 6 locations randomly at game start. So if you take your character and you move into Glenmore, for example, where there's a ship, you can then take that ship and move it to one of the Isles of Skellig. And this expansion also introduces its own exploration deck and events deck. So as you travel out to sea, you're drawing from the exploration deck, and you get to go on certain adventures and interact with certain events as you play. This expansion also introduces a monster called Dagon, and he's represented by this card here. So he has his own special track on the board, and as you go through exploration cards, he might move up this track and eventually land in this top spot, where you are then able to take a ship over to his location and go into combat with him. And if you're able to take him down, you're able to gain one of his bonus cards, which has some really cool abilities on him. Now let's talk about the Legendary Hunt expansion. This is a pretty cool expansion that actually changes the win condition of the game. Now, typically the game is won by the first player to collect 4 trophies, but if you're using the Legendary Hunt expansion, the goal of the game is now to defeat the legendary monster. So at game start, there's a deck of legendary monsters here, and you can search this deck and choose which monster you wish to fight, or you can just shuffle it and say we're fighting the Cyclops for this game. So once you pick out your legendary monster you're going to fight, you can take his card and flip it over, and this is what you'll use when you actually go into combat with him. But you can find his matching token here in the bag and then place him out on the board. The Cyclops here shows that he starts in location 11, so you can go ahead and drag him out to location 11, Beauclair. So that's where he'll start the game. And he has his own deck of movement cards, so at the end of every round you will draw one of these cards, and it will instruct you to move him towards this location and then subsequently to that location based on a number of steps according to however many players you have in the game. And he will also leave these destruction tokens in his wake as he moves around the board. And you can collect these destruction tokens as you move into the spaces as he leaves them behind. And they typically give you a nice bonus by collecting these, and you get to keep them by your player board. And they actually give you a bonus when you eventually go into combat with the legendary monster at the end of the game. Now, I did mention that the goal of the game is no longer to be the first to collect 4 trophies. However, collecting trophies and going up the trophy track here is still important because, as denoted by this aid card here, if I were to, for example, bring this over to the trophy track, the defense level of the legendary monster is lowered based on how many trophies that you have. So if you were here on the trophy track and you go to fight the legendary monster, he's gonna negate 1 point of damage every fight turn. So that can make him harder to take down. But if you get up to here on the trophy track, he has 0 shields, and he'll be a little bit easier to take down. And that is the gist of the Legendary Hunt expansion. All right, now I'll briefly touch on some of the extra bonus content. Right here you have the Lost Mount module, which just adds 1 card to the game, and this token, the Lost Mount token. This was kind of a nod to the Witcher 3 horse bugs, but basically this token is seeded out onto the board. You draw 2 random locations to. So if I were to draw him in a mountain space, I could. Okay, he's going to go between either 9 and 3. And I could choose, let's say he starts off in Sintra over here. And then if you reach his location in the game, you flip this card over, and you roll a die, and you have the opportunity to gain a couple cards. And then he gets basically teleported to a different location on the game board. So it's a small little beneficial expansion that allows you to gain cards if you happen to come across the Lost Mount in game. The Siren module here only works with the Skellig expansion. So if you have Skellig disabled, Siren will not come out on the board regardless of what this checkmark says. But if Skellig is enabled and you include the Siren and you start game, then the Siren, her card is placed right here and her token is placed right here as well. And this is a monster that you have the ability to go sail to and fight before Dagon reaches his top spot here. So it's just an extra monster in the game that you can choose to take on if you wish. These next three modules are just simply bonus monsters to include in their respective decks. You have 2 level 3 monsters that you can include in their deck. And then if you're playing the Legendary Hunt expansion, you can enable Karen to add his card to the deck. So you can choose to fight him if you wish as your legendary boss. And here we have the Wild Hunt expansion. Now this expansion is the cooperative mode expansion. So instead of competing to gain trophies, you are now working together to take down a member of the Wild Hunt. And so you are able to choose your difficulty. This will kind of change how many monsters are seated onto the board and how many shield points the Wild Hunt member will have. And then you get to also choose which member of the Wild Hunt you wish to face off against. Right now they're listed in the kind of recommended order according to the rulebook, but you are certainly welcome to choose whichever member you wish to fight. So if I were doing a normal 2-player game against Eridan, I would just select these options and hit Start Game. I will also point out that the Wild Hunt expansion is not compatible with Legendary Hunt, the Skellig expansion, or the Adventure Pack expansions. So if you have these enabled and you hit Wild Hunt, you'll see they're going to disable themselves automatically. And that goes both ways. So if you have Wild Hunt enabled and you want to Legendary Hunt, they're kind of conflicting things because, again, in Legendary Hunt, you're trying to take down a boss monster. In Wild Hunt, you're trying to go cooperatively against the Wild Hunt. And finally, I'll point out some of the bonus fan-made content I have included in the game. The Solo Automa mode by Duke Fan Blue on Board Game Geek is a cool way for you to play a solo game as if you're playing a 2-player game. So if I wanted to play the Solo Automa, I might start with the base game, add in the Solo Automa. You can include mages and Adventure Pack. You can include most things you would normally. But you would actually put the players at 2 because you are effectively playing a 2-player game, but the Automa expansion includes a deck of cards that kind of drives the second player in the game. So by starting the game with this, the Automa expansion cards are dealt out into the table over here. And here's the rulebook that he graciously put together so you can go through this and learn how to kind of assemble the 2 decks that you need to play against the Automa. And then you can be off and running. All right, with that basic overview out of the way, let's talk about actually setting up and playing the game. I'm just going to go start with the kind of default suggested expansions enabled for a 2-player game. So I will have these enabled and hit Start Game. Now the decks will sort themselves out and shuffle them up. And then it will have these character selection cards down the left and right sides of the board. Down the left sides are all the Witchers, including the School of Manticore Witcher from the Monster Trail expansion and Ciri, which was a Kickstarter Witcher. And on the right side, you have your selection of 5 mage cards. So for this game, I'll go ahead and pick the blue player, and let's say I choose to be the School of the Cat Witcher. So these are big buttons. All I have to do is click on the button, and it will set up my play area with my board, my starting deck, my trophy cards. This is a 2-player game, so I only have 1 trophy that another player can win. And this is effectively my mini. Side note, I hope to include the actual 3D minis at some point in the future. Perhaps if one of you guys can help me get some models for those, that would be greatly appreciated. But for now, I've made these tokens, which are sufficient to play the game. So we will start him at his School of the Cat right here in Stiga. And his trophy track token, scoring token, has been added to the bottom of the trophy track. And maybe I'll go ahead and pretend I'm the second player over here in orange, and we will play as the mage Philippa. So clicking her button, seeds are out onto the table, And she has a couple extra tokens being a mage. So as a mage, she doesn't have a fixed school on the game board. You are able to choose any school of one of the unused witchers. So let's say, for example, for this game, I will take over the School of the Bear, and it's now going to be Philippa's school. So she'll start here in location 10, and her little special ability, we can kind of cover up this armor ability because that's the School of the Bear, but he's not playing the game, so we don't need to worry about that. And then I like to lock these into place. Just hover over the token and hit L on your keyboard, and that basically prevents me from accidentally moving these tokens out of the way. So that is her starting point. And then also in the chat window here, I have laid out basically what your starting monsters and starting resources should be for this 2-player game. So let's say the blue player, School of the Cat Witcher, is the first player, so he's going to take 3 cards. And now I'll take 2 gold. So for the money in this game, they have different visual depictions, but they are each a denomination of 1. So you can choose whatever coins you wish to note how many coins you got. So he's got 2 gold there, and then let me switch over to the other player, and they have a starting hand of 5 cards. So I will choose 5 cards from that deck, and I'll grab a couple coins. And there we go. Now if I scroll up here a little bit, it will also show me that for our 2-player game, we are instructed to spawn the following monsters. We need 2 level 1 monsters and 1 level 2 monster. So we have these 3 spaces on the game board for spawning monsters. Now if you're playing with just the base game alone and not with the monster weakness expansion, as I mentioned earlier, the monsters will be represented by these small cards here, and that's totally fine. But we have the monster weakness expansion enabled, so we will be using these large cards here. However, I've included these buttons here at the base of each section, so you are able to spawn a level 1, a level 2, or level 3 monster pretty easily. So we need to spawn a level 1 monster here. I'll just click this button. So we've got the Aracas here, and he's supposed to be spawned at location 17, Stiga. And this is also represented in the text here, spawning a new level 1 monster, Aracas, at location 17. So we'll go ahead and place him out on location 17. Oh, hey, what's up? He's right next to the School of the Cat. And you'll also notice a second location has been drawn. This is for you to place the weakness token. So I'll take a face-down weakness token, and I'll place it on location 6 at Novigrad. Once it's placed there, I can go ahead and put this back in the bag here. I'll make a mention that all these bags here are automatically randomized, so every time I pull from the bag, they will be random, so you don't have to manually reshuffle these every time. Same goes for these weakness tokens. So let's spawn another level 1 monster for the water location. Alright, we got the Archspore at Sidaris, so he goes there, and we have to put the weakness token on location 14, right there. And we'll go ahead and put this back. Also, you may notice in the text down here, there's just a friendly note that whenever you need to place a weakness token, if there's a Witcher or Mage already at that location, just go ahead and manually redraw a new location and place it there. So that's kind of why I didn't want to automate placing the tokens out on the board, because there's a lot of instances where maybe that location's covered up by a Witcher or some other effect. So it just seemed actually pretty simple to just manually place it on the board. And oh, if there's something already there, just draw a new token, a location token, and then you can put it at the relevant spot. And finally, we will spawn a level 2 monster in the 3rd slot. So he goes up to Caramoran, location 3, way up here. And the weakness token goes to Beauclair. There we go. And we can put this one back. And that finishes our basic setup, and now we can begin playing the game. Let me now run through a sample turn or two, just to give you a basic overview of how to play the game. So if I'm starting the first player as the School of the Cat Witcher, I have a starting hand of 3 cards, and at this point we're only really worried about the location here at the bottom left corner, so mountain, forest, forest. That kind of determines where I'm able to move during my turn. So let's say I wanted to work on leveling up my abilities. Maybe I will play my first mountain card here, and that allows me to move over here and level up my combat ability. so I can raise that by 1 notch. Now I will play a forest location. Let me go back to my school. And this allows me to pay money to level up another ability. So let's say, for example, I will level up my special ability, which I can only do in my school. So I'll pay 2 coins. And now I can level up my special ability here. And then I'll play my last forest location card and move over here to Dewood. And I'll grab a potion card off the deck and add it to one of my 4 potion slots. Now that I'm out of cards, I move on to phase 2 of my turn. Now for phase 2, you can either explore, you can fight, or you can meditate. Meditation is done after you've leveled one of your attributes all the way up to level 5, so I can't do that now. Fighting, I need to have another monster or potentially a witcher at my location, which I can't do. So basically the only option I have at this point is to explore. And I have a choice of exploring in the city or in the wilds. So let's say I'll choose the city location here. And I won't read through this just to spoil anything, but basically most of these exploration cards gives you an A or B option. So you can read the top half, or your friend will read the top half, and then you get to choose which option you pick. And let's say I chose the second option here, B, and I gain 2 gold. Now I will move on to phase 3, where I get to gain a card. So after discarding my hand, moving on to phase 3, you start by drawing up to 3 cards. So now that I have 3 cards in my hand, I get to go over to the market section and I get to gain a card in this row here. This upper row here is specifically for the mages. So if you're not playing with the mage expansion, these cards won't even be here. But mages can only gain cards from this row, and witchers can only gain cards from this row. Now the cost to gain a card is shown here in the bottom right corner. And the cost is paid by discarding cards from your hand. So I have these buttons next to each card, and for this phase 3, you typically are gaining a card to your hand, so this will be the button that you choose. But there are other effects in the game that allow you to gain a card to your discard pile, or that allow you to just trash a card from the row. So that's why I have these other buttons here as well. So let's go ahead and say I choose a Staggering Blow here. I'll go ahead and gain this to my hand. And it will automate filling in the card row and drawing in a new card. So that's the end of my turn. I will pass it over to the second player. All right, so for Philippa's turn, let's say we start out by discarding a mountain card, moving over to Sintra, gaining a potion, and then we'll move up to Sidaris by discarding a water card. And this will allow us to raise our defense level. So we'll go ahead and do that. Mages don't actually have a defense level, they have a wisdom level instead. So that allows us to move up our wisdom level and our energy level as well. We'll follow that up by discarding this kind of wild card location and move into the forest here, which allows us to collect a weakness token for the forest monster. So we are now able to collect that and flip that over and see that it says 1, and we can then refer to the forest monster here and flip this card over. And now we can read the number 1 weakness effect that we get to enable when we fight this monster. Since we've taken a weakness token, we have to draw a new one from the pool. There should always be a weakness token for forest, water, and mountains on the board at the time. So right now, since we've taken the forest token, we get to spawn a new one on the board. And that's done simply by just grabbing a new forest location, 6 Novigrad, okay, and we'll place it down. Oh, we can't place it down there because a witcher or a mage is there, so we'll draw a new one. Vengerberg. Okay, we'll put this down in Vengerberg. Simple as that. Now, while we're here at Novigrad, we'll go ahead and play dice poker against the locals. So we ante up 1 gold. And the locals will ante up 2 gold, and now we play a round of dice poker. So I'll go ahead and roll these dice here, and maybe the second player will go ahead and roll these dice here. Now the defending poker player, so to speak, gets to re-roll first. And they don't really have anything here. So maybe they'll just, they don't even have a straight. So maybe they'll just re-roll these and see if they get anything. They got a pair of 6s. Okay, let's see if we're doing any better. We have 2 6s to start off, so right now we're tied, but we get 1 re-roll ourselves. And we We got a full house. Okay, so we got 3 6s and 2 5s. So we definitely win the pot. So we get to get all this gold, which is great. All right, let's continue our turn here. Let's head up to a school, Caroberta, up here by discarding a water card. And this allows us to pay money to level up one of our abilities. So we're going to be leveling up, let's say we level up combat, and we're moving it up to the 2nd level, so it's going to cost us 2 coins. So I'll go ahead and pay 2 coins and raise our combat level. And then I'll go ahead and play our last card, which is a mountain card, and move us over to Hang Force, which allows us to gain another coin. So we'll grab one. And it allows us to gain a monster trail of our choice. So let's say we are intending to fight the forest monster. We already have a weakness token of theirs. So in this case, we will grab a forest location, which is 6, and we place a coin from the bank on it. Now this tells us that if we ever end up back in Novigrad, which is real close, we then gain this coin, and we gain this as a monster trail token, which enables us to go first whenever we decide to fight that monster. But for now, it's kind of like a quest for us to go to Novigrad to learn more about this forest monster. So that's the end of phase 1. So I'll now go ahead and discard all the cards that I played. And moving on to phase 2, I can either fight, meditate, or explore. My only option is to explore, so I'll draw the first exploration card. And so the other player will read the top half of the card, and then I make my choice. Let's say in this one I chose the B side here, which says raise your combat level by 1, and I have a quest for a mountain location. And when I reach that location, I get to grab event 92 out of the events deck. So we'll grab a random mountain location from the bag here, and this says location 10, Heron Kadooch. So we'll go ahead and put a quest token on that location. As a nice reminder that if I reach that location, then I get to do something with this card. I'll go ahead and take this card with me for now and place it near my player board as a reminder as well. So when I reach that location, I get to grab event 92 from the deck. And I will place the mountain location back in the bag. Okay, phase 3, I draw back up to 3 cards, and I get to go shopping. So out of these cards here, let's say that I was interested in Magic Trance, but you might notice that the first 2 cards in the market row have a +1 cost to them. So it really doesn't do me any good to try to grab a card from these first 2 rows unless I really want it. Moreover, the card in the very last slot has a discount of -1. So if this was a cost 1 card, it would be a cost 0 card. However, since the cost 0 card is already there, the discount really doesn't do me any good. But I'll still go ahead and gain this card. And by gaining a card, it will then also discard a matching card from the other market. Alright, so I've skipped ahead a couple of turns to see if we can initiate some combat this turn, so we can see how that works. So it is currently the School of the Cat Witcher's turn, and I will show you his board state real quick. We've leveled up combat a little bit more, and his defense stat is still at level 1, so our overall Witcher level is still level 1 as well. I've got 2 potions in my bag here, as well as a bomb. And as far as weakness tokens go, we have a weakness token for the forest monster, the water monster, and we have a monster trail token for the water monster. And I think that's who we're going to go after this turn, because he is not far away. And I think we're ready to take him on. So I will go ahead and start my turn here. Now for my current location, I'm tempted to go down to Glenmore first to see if I can raise my specialty level. However, since my current specialty level is above my current Witcher level, I will not be able to make use of that location action. So it really does me no good going there this specific turn. So instead, I'll head over to Sintra. And so in order to do that, I need to discard a mountain location, and I'll actually choose this wild card here. And that allows me to gain a potion. Great. That's number 3. And then after that, I am going to discard a water location, so I can move up into Sidaris. And I will make use of its location action to raise my defense level. So I get to move up from 1 to 2, which allows me to move up my shield. And moreover, since all of my attributes are now at least level 2, I can level up my overall Witcher level. Now, if I was playing just the base game, that would allow me to draw a card into my hand right now, which can give me some more movement options or attack cards to play during my first turn. But since I'm using the mutagen expansion, instead of drawing a card, I get to gain a new mutagen ability. So to do that, you just have to take the top 3 cards off of the deck and select which one you want. And to start off, these both require playing a specific combo of colors in a fight turn. Meanwhile, this one just says if your card combo does no damage, then you get to deal a damage point. That sounds pretty good. Because sometimes you may not have any cards in hand to play during a fight turn, or some other effect might prevent you from doing damage at all. So this kind of ensures I at least get 1 damage out on the turn. With the cards I did not select, I put them back in the deck and shuffle them up for the next person to take mutagen cards. Okay, so I will end my phase 1 here. And so I move on to phase 2. I can go ahead and discard these cards that I played. And for phase 2, I will choose to fight the Archispore here, which is the water location monster. So I'll go ahead and refer to the player aid card here. Let me just grab a copy of this so we can have it on handy here. All right, so Witcher versus monster. The player controlling the monster reads the monster's special ability. So yeah, going into battle, you need to first up see if there's any special ability that the monster has. So this reads, the player must discard any one of their unused potions with no effect to initiate a fight with this monster. So it's kind of a prerequisite. Since I got 2 copies of Thunderbolt here, I'll go ahead and discard that. So no problem. And then I will also take a look at my weakness tokens. Right now I have a weakness for number 4. So I just flip the card over and see what that reads here. Before creating the life pool, draw 1 potion. Okay, cool. So I had to discard a potion to initiate combat, and because of the weakness token I had, I get a new card out of it. Great. If I had any other weakness tokens, I can also apply their effects. And regardless of whether or not I choose to use those abilities, I get to hang on to that weakness token until the monster is defeated or driven away. So now we'll go ahead and make the monster's life pool. And that is built out of this deck of monster fight cards. Typically in the base game, this is a deck of 20 cards. And each turn the monster goes, either another player will choose, or you can flip this token here to see if the monster charges you or bites you, and then you apply the chosen effect. But since we are using the monster weakness expansion with these larger cards, some of the cards from the 20 card deck are put off to the side to start the game, and you will only add those cards back into the deck when a level 3 monster makes its appearance for the first time. In addition to that, there are some new special ability cards that get shuffled into this deck as well. That's part of game setup. They look like these cards here. So if it's the monster's turn to attack and he reveals one of these cards, you do the special ability that this monster has. So in this case, his first ability here, and you get to read that and take its effect. Moreover, if you are doing damage to the monster and you reveal one of these cards, you actually trigger this passive ability here, shown up here, which might negate some further damage or all sorts of different effects. So we need to create a deck of 12 cards. There are 16 in this deck right now, so I might just take the deck as a whole and then just draw 4 cards off the top of it. And so now I've got a deck of 12 monster fight cards to make up his life pool. Now I need to go ahead and make up my own life pool. So I keep the cards in my hand that I have already. I don't adjust that. I just take my discard pile and bring it back to my deck and shuffle that up. And so now we are ready to get into combat. So by default, the monster takes the first fight turn. However, I have acquired a monster trail token for this water monster, so I get to take the first fight turn. All right, so I only have 2 cards in hand. They don't combo into each other or anything, so let's see what else I can do. At the beginning of every one of your fight turns, you have the ability to play potions. And so yeah, right here, player's fight turn. Step 1, using potions, specialties, and effects. So if I wanted to use a potion or more, I can, this is my chance to play it now. Due to my alchemy stat, I can only use 2 potions or bombs, or combination thereof, over the course of the entire fight. So even though I've got 4 cards here, I can only use a max of 2 of them. I'm going to go ahead and use Thunderbolt here to give myself some more card draw. So this says lower my shield by 1 and draw 2 cards from your deck. Great. And to denote that I've used it, I'll go ahead and flip that over This will be discarded at the end of the entire fight, but this kind of reminds me that, hey, I've used one of my 2 potions that I'm able to during this turn. Okay, so looking at my hand, it looks like I've got a few more options on the table. So I will start by playing my Spectral action, Sharp Claws. So it's going to do 2 damage out of the gate, and it says if there are at least 2 blue cards in this combo, I get to raise my shield by 1. I don't think I'm going to be able to trigger that, but this will be able to link into this purple card here, and that will be able to link into the red card here. So I get to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage. And because I also use this red linker here, I get to draw an extra card at the end of my turn here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I get to do 5 damage to the monster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We did not trigger the special ability, so that's 5 straight damage. Very simple. I'll go ahead and discard those, and I get to draw my combat value, which is a value of 3. So I get and I get to draw 4 cards because this one modifies that number, so I get to draw 4 cards to end my turn. Great, now it's the monster's turn to go. Typically, another player at the table will choose if the monster charges or bites, or alternatively, you can just use this and flip it up and see what the monster's going to do. So the monster is charging. The player takes 3, 4, or 5 damage based on the monster level. Well, this is a level 1 monster, so I'm taking 3 damage. The first hit will take off my shield, and then 2 more damage is dealt from my deck. Okay, my turn. Let's see here. All right, well, it looks like I don't have all that many options. I guess I will just go ahead and play this card here, Erden, and Quick Slash. So I get to draw 1 more card at the end of my turn, and I get to do 2 damage. So we'll draw 2 damage cards. Again, no problem there. And I will draw 4 cards into my hand. Also, keep in mind that during combat, you have a max hand limit, a max hand size of 7 cards. So I just have to keep that in mind next time I need to draw cards. Time for the monster's turn to go. He's got 4 cards left in his health pool. Let's see what he does. It's a bite. 4 more damage. That's rough. So 1, 2, and now he starts taking from my hand. I'm going to go ahead and discard Retaliation. And that is, if this card is discarded, either from hand or from the deck, as a result of an opponent's attack, your opponent immediately takes 2 damage. So he will take 2 more damage from that. I should pause here for a moment and see what happens from his special ability here. Cover over. If this fight turns player's combo has no offensive sign, purple card, the monster ignores 2 of the further damage in this player's fight turn. Now, this is actually an interesting... I'm going to have to think about how this interacts, because he is taking damage not from my own fight turn, but from my Retaliation card. So I'll have a think on that. In the meantime, I will discard 1 further card from my hand, which I needed to do from his damage. After thinking it over a little bit, I still don't know if there's a solid ruling on this, but I'm going to rule it in favor of the monster. I didn't discard a purple card, or there was not a purple card according to as part of this combo, so I'm going to say he's going to ignore 2 of the further damage, so I'm going to take this card back and give it back to his hit points. Don't really think it's going to change the outcome of this fight, but it's good to think about. All right, so it's my turn again. I'm just going to go ahead and finish him off with this Crushing Blow, which is going to do 3 damage, which is more than enough to take him down. However, if I had drawn this ability earlier, he might have prevented 2 more damage. So he could have survived another round, but in this specific case, we successfully took him down. All right, so we have won the fight against the monster. I'll go ahead and grab the other player aid over here to remind ourselves what happens after the fight. So we get to raise our shield level up to our defense level. Our defense level is 2, so our shields go up to 2. Great. We get to put all of our cards together. That includes our deck, our discard pile, and our hand. We'll shuffle that up. So we do gain a trophy for killing this monster, so it allows us to hit the plus button here to go up on the trophy track. And by doing so, as we move up this track here, it instructs us to trash 1 card from our entire deck of cards. So we will search through our deck of cards here, and let's go ahead and... Yeah, I'm going to get rid of... Well, Push has a wild location. Ooh. I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Rending Blow. We have a lot of red cards, and it seems like a decent one as any to get rid of. So in order to trash this, I'm going to go ahead and just straight delete the card, or you can just throw it to the side of the table if you prefer. And we do get to gain gold. Up here at the top of the game board here, it has a reminder when you're fighting against a monster. If you win, you get the trophy, and you get 2 gold coins. So I will take 2 coins for winning that fight. And we get to gain the trophy of this monster as well. So we don't collect the big card, but instead we will collect the respective small card. So we'll grab that, flip it over, and add it to our stack here. And now we have this new ability, once per fight, during your fight turn, if you have 0 cards in your deck, raise your shield level by 1. So that's a nice now permanent passive ability we have for fighting that monster. Again, with the large card, we don't need it anymore, so we'll feel free to delete that. And now that we've taken care of the water location monster, we will clean up any water related tokens that are on the board. So my weakness, water weakness token here goes back. The location that I had for the monster trail location goes back. Same with other players. They discard all of their weakness tokens as well, and any that are left over on the board all go away because we are getting a fresh new water monster. So after defeating this level 1 monster, we will now spawn a level 2 monster in its place. We can get rid of this as well, and now we'll spawn a new level 2 monster. And we're getting the Wyvern. It's spawning at Banard, location number 4. So we'll go ahead and plonk that guy out, and his weakness token will spawn at Glenmore, location 12, right there. And now that we've moved the weakness out there, we can get rid of this, put it back in the bag, and that's ready to go. We got a new monster out on the table. Finally, we moved to phase 3, and we were victorious, so we get to draw our standard hand of 3 cards. I'll go ahead and do that now, and move into shopping. And I will go ahead and just grab, I'll grab counterattack here. Why not? And that concludes this Witcher's turn. All right, well, I hope that's given you a basic run-through of how to play the Witcher board game here on Tabletop Simulator. Keep in mind, this is, like I said before, this is not a full rules instructional video, so if you're new to this game, I highly encourage you to parse through the various rule books here for all the specific rules. But hopefully this gave you a basic overview of how the game is played and what you're going to be doing during the game. Enjoy.